there's no escape from that word. Determination from that word. Determination from that word. Determination from that word. Determination.
Black people have never really had any substantive rights that they could pick up and acquire and use. Let's go back in history, because see, the Constitution was written specifically based on what white folk wanted to do with black folk in the country, and that was to use them as a labor class. That black people should never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. That was a cardinal rule, and to make sure that that stayed in effect, they put in effect they call a doctrine of unequal exchange. And Madison has suggested, and that's what Benjamin Franklin had to say, I support that. And Thomas Jefferson said, I will write it. And George Washington, okay, fine, you write it up. And so they started writing the United States Constitution. And after the Declaration of Independence in 1776. So in 1779, they came and met in Philadelphia to put this thing together. They said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to write a United States Constitution. And but say we got one problem though. The problem is that we're going to write this Constitution to be an inspiration for all the people in the world. They can come here and get what we call the American dream, which means free labor and free land. And but to do that, we got a problem. We're going to take the land from the Indians. We're going to offer them free. Understand the purpose and intent of the United States Constitution. When you start talking about, let's go back to the original intent of the Constitution. The original intent of the United States Constitution was to be the first affirmative action plan in the United States. And it was designed strictly and solely for whites. It was never designed to include black people in it. How do we justify not allowing black folk to be a part of the benefiting class? And finally they said, well, what we'll do, we'll change and use certain words in the Constitution that will exclude them or give the pretense that they were included by using very broad and ambiguous terms. Look at the first part of the United States Constitution, where it says, we, and this is the preamble to Article 1, we are the people of the United States. Now they said we the people. The we the people, they were not talking about black folk. No place in the Constitution they call black folk people. Black folk are defined in the Constitution as being property, as being 3/5 of a human being. They were dehumanized and left as non-civilized human beings, and that they would be equal to field animals. So whenever the Constitution used the word, those very broad and and big words like we the people and all the people in the Constitution, they are not talking about black folk.
Shalabi, R-A-E-D-S-H-A-L-A-B-I. Yeah, Mr. Kelly.
Steve Greenberg, I'm Mr. Kelly.
All right, the record will indicate Mr. Kelly's present in the courtroom.
Second installment of a docuseries about disgraced R&B star R. Kelly premieres tonight on Lifetime in Surviving R. Kelly Part 2.
What did you witness between Aaliyah and R. Kelly?
Disturbing new accusations this morning against R. Kelly.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly. R&B star R. Kelly.
I also want to take the time out to cite the sources of some of these audios, some of these audio clips, sound bites, and the pictures that we got from CBS, the New York Post, or rather the New York Times, the LA Post, NPR, ABC News, like I said, the New York Times, LA Times, LA Magazine, The Guardian, NPR, USA Today, ABC 7, The Daily Beast. Some of the images we got from screenshots from YouTube from CBS as well. CBS This Morning and different news programs like that. Before we continue. So what we are going to show you next is images and some sound bites from the interview that Gayle King did with R. Kelly. Now, note, this video, this portion of the video is not in defense of R. Kelly, but to show the hypocrisy within the quote-unquote justice system. Remember, Gayle King worked with Charlie Rose for 5 years. Charlie Rose has had sexual harassment and sexual misconduct charges lodged against him within the CBS Corporation as far back as 1976. I wasn't even born yet, and this dude was already sexually harassing females. And note, you will see images within this video that show women saying that working for CBS was like walking through a minefield. No matter where they stepped, there was sexual harassment to be found in whichever direction they turned within that organization. Gayle King took it upon herself to spearhead this R. Kelly interview, investigation, interrogation, but yet claims that there's two sides to every story when we're talking about her friend, the white supremacist, Charlie Rose, who, by the way, that we know of has had 27 women within the CBS Corporation lodge complaints against him. And he was still allowed to have his job up until 2017. He was still allowed to have his job. 40 years of this man harassing and quite possibly raping women. And he's just now paying a price for it.
I'm surprised that you agreed to do it. Why are you sitting down with us today?
I'm very tired of all of the lies. I've been hearing things and seeing things on the blogs, and I'm just tired.
What are the lies that you're hearing that disturb you most?
Oh my God, all of them. Got little girls trapped in the basement, helicopters over my house, trying to rescue someone that doesn't need rescuing because they're not in my house, handcuffing people, starving people. I have a harem, a coat. Mm-hmm. I don't even really know what a coat is, but I know I don't have one,
Have you done anything that you regret? Have you done anything wrong?
Lots of things wrong. when it comes to women that I apologize. But I apologize in those relationships. At the time I was in the relationships.
Have you broken any laws when it comes to women?
Absolutely not.
The 6-part series interviewed 50 people, family members, your former tour manager, numerous women who all claim that you abused them. Are you saying everybody in that documentary was not telling the truth about you? Everybody?
If you really look at that documentary, which I'm sure you have,
I have.
Everybody said something bad about me. Nobody said nothing good. They was describing Lucifer. I'm not Lucifer. I'm a man. I make mistakes, but I'm not a devil, and by no means am I a monster.
I'm going to name the names. Andrea Kelly, your ex-wife, Kitty Jones, Lisa Van Allen, Lisette Martinez, Geronda Pace, Faith Rogers, Asante McGee. You're saying everything they said in that documentary about you is not true.
They are lying on me.
Why would these women say the same thing about you? That you are controlling, that you are abusive, that you tell women when to eat, when to go to the bathroom, when they can sleep, where they can dress. Why would all these women tell these different stories about you if they were not true? And they don't know each other. That defies logic to me.
Right. Until you hear the explanation. You can start a rumor on a guy like me or a celebrity just like that. All you have to do is push a button on your phone and say, so-and-so did this to me. R. Kelly did this to me. And if you get any traction from that, if you're able to write a book from that, if you're able to get a reality show, then any girl that I had a relationship in the past that it just didn't work out, she can come and say the same exact thing.
Are you blaming this on social media?
I'm talking about the power of social media.
In 2008, R. Kelly was found not guilty on 14 counts of child pornography after prosecutors in Chicago failed to convince a jury that he was a man seen in a sex tape with a girl as young as 13.
What do you want to say to your fans?
Last month, Kelly was indicted again, this time charged with aggravated criminal sexual abuse of 4 women, including 3 who the charges say were minors at the time. Have you ever had sex with anyone under the age of 17?
No.
Never?
No.
I have to tell you, it's so hard to believe that based on all that we've read.
I'm going to tell you something, Gail. There's one thing. I'm going to tell you something.
What women said about you?
What women said about me. So nobody's allowed to be mad at me and be scorned and lie on me.
So they're lying on you. That's your explanation. They're lying on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You feel that people have maligned your character?
I have been assassinated. I have been buried alive. But I'm alive.
So I think the point you're making is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have never held anybody against their will.
I don't need to. Why would I?
Well,
how stupid would it be for R. Kelly, with all I've been through in my way, way past, to hold somebody, let alone 4, 5, 6, 50, you said. How stupid would I be to do that?
I didn't say you were
holding... That's stupid, guys. Is this camera on me?
Yes, it's on.
That's stupid. Use your common sense. Don't forget the blogs. Forget how you feel about me. Hate me if you want to, love me if you want, but just use your common sense. How stupid would it be for me to, with my crazy past and what I've been through, right now I just think I need to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement, and don't let them eat and don't let them out unless they need some shoes down the street from their uncle.
Robert,
stop it. Y'all quit playing. Quit playing.
Robert.
I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career. Y'all trying to kill me. You're killing me, man. This is not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth. You don't want to believe it.
At this point, we briefly pause the interview to give Kelly a moment. His publicist helped calm him down.
I hope this camera keep going.
No, we're gonna.
This
let
is
the
not
camera keep
true.
rolling.
This is not. Doesn't even make sense. Why would I hold all these women Their mothers and fathers told me, we're going to destroy your career.
But Kelly's emotions remained raw.
It's real girls out there missing. Have chains on their wrists and they can't get out.
Robert,
and they're ending up buried in death.
Robert, we have to have a conversation.
Really,
I don't want you just ranting at the camera.
I came here for them to hear me talk.
But
I need help.
What kind of help?
This is the kind of help I need.
Yes, what kind of help?
I need somebody to help me not have a big heart. Because my heart is so big. People betray me and I keep forgiving them.
You sound like you're playing the victim here. You sound like R. Kelly, you do. When I listen to you,
I'm just telling the truth.
You're playing the victim.
I'm just telling the truth. And the reason I'm emotional,
Robert,
and I apologize for that,
No,
is because this
no.
is the first time I was able to say
speak.
something. I've said nothing.
The world already knew about Bill O'Reilly's long reign of sexual harassment, including propositioning producers and guests for sex, threatening their careers when they refused him, and ultimately reaching legal settlements with at least 6 women totaling a reported $45 million. But a new report reveals the ousted Fox News host and current BillO'Reilly.com vlogger went to ugly extremes to silence his accusers. According to the New York Times' Emily Steele, a co-author of many of the paper's earlier O'Reilly investigations, newly released settlement agreements between O'Reilly and ex-producer Andrea McChrist and Rebecca Gomez-Diamond, a former Fox Business Network host, reveal the women were required to turn over all evidence of sexual harassment, including audio recordings and diaries, to Mr. O'Reilly. In addition, Ms. McChrist was required to disclaim the materials as counterfeit and forgeries if they ever became public, or as that's known in plain English, to flat out lie. The agreements, including a $3.25 million settlement with Diamond, also confirm the previously reported detail that O'Reilly tapped private investigators to dig up dirt on McChrist, presumably to be used against her, and that, as part of the settlement, the investigators agreed to destroy that information. Shockingly, the new documents also show that a McChrist attorney switched sides in the middle of the legal battle in order to work for O'Reilly, widely considered to be a conflict of interest in the legal community, given the intimate knowledge the attorneys had on the accusers. The terms of the confidential settlements are trickling out this week as part of an ongoing defamation lawsuit filed against O'Reilly and Fox News by McChrist, Diamond, and a third accuser, Rachel Whitley Bernstein, who alleged the host and network painted them as liars and extortionists in their response to the O'Reilly scandal. The former television personality has vociferously defended himself since his ouster last April, saying he was the target of a political and financial hit job, and insisting he never mistreated women. He is calling for the suit's dismissal. The O'Reilly imbroglio again raises questions about how wealthy, powerful men may use confidential legal settlements to buy women's silence in sexual harassment cases. In some instances, settlements are a victim's only shot at justice, save going public and risking her own reputation in a civil trial, and they can be a financial necessity for some women, especially if the boss issuing her sex invites or emailing porn to her account has forced her to leave her job and her paychecks behind. But O'Reilly's tactics represent a new low. It's one thing for both parties to agree to confidentiality and vow to decline comment if ever asked about the case in the media. But it's another entirely to ask a sexual harassment victim to outright lie and misrepresent evidence, effectively rewriting history and erasing alleged abuse, in order to move forward. So much for O'Reilly's no-spin zone. A stipulation requiring McChrist to disclaim real evidence as counterfeit and forgeries if they ever became public. Paging Donald Trump. Looks like O'Reilly is a front-runner for the fake news awards. Connected dots between former Fox News anchor Juliette Huddy having spoken on her NBC News show on Monday, and Fox parent having fired Juliette's brother before the show was over. There's more fallout today in the wake of that reported $32 million payout by former Fox News anchor Bill O'Reilly to Lise Wheel, Kelly began. O'Reilly accuser Juliette Huddy, a former Fox News anchor, was here yesterday, speaking about the downsides of settling the cases like this, which typically, and in her case, result in non-disclosure agreements, which basically shut the accusers up, Kelly continued. Huddy, she said, was open here about her fear in saying anything at all, as Kelly threw to a clip of Huddy saying she was terrified of retribution. Before the end of our show yesterday, before the 9 o'clock hour had concluded, Fox News fired Juliette's brother, John Huddy, a Fox News correspondent, Kelly added, pointedly. By the end of the day, Fox News had its own statement announcing that, following a thorough investigation into a physical altercation earlier this month, Fox News made the decision to sever ties with Jerusalem-based correspondent John Huddy. The network's investigation concluded last week, and due to observation of the Sabbath on Friday, terminated Huddy's employment this morning. Minutes, CBS flagship news magazine show that's been on air since the 1960s, reportedly sexually assaulted a woman and ruined her career in the 1990s. Lawyers researching sexual harassment at the network after a series of recent scandals found that CBS quietly reached a settlement with the woman in the 1990s, and the network continues to pay her to this day, according to a New York Times report. The woman claimed Don Hewitt, who created 60 Minutes in 1968, repeatedly sexually assaulted her and ruined her career. The report didn't give details of what Hewitt, who died in 2009, allegedly did. The settlement was reached after CBS investigated allegations that Hewitt had, for years, sexually assaulted an employee of the network. CBS determined her allegations were credible, according to the report, and agreed to pay her a $450,000 settlement. Since they reached the agreement, the Times reported, they renegotiated 6 times, agreeing to pay her more than $5 million in exchange for her silence. The Times uncovered the arrangement after the network hired 2 law firms to do a thorough investigation at CBS after they fired executive Les Moonves after sexual misconduct allegations against him. The Times published a report earlier this week that said the lawyers found Moonves had obstructed a network-led investigation into sexual misconduct claims made against him in an effort to save his severance package. CBS could not be reached for comment and declined to comment to the Times.
Now to another developing story. CBS News today fired Jeff Fager, the executive producer of 60 Minutes, who had spent 36 years at the network. In less than a year now, 3 of the most powerful men in broadcasting, Fager, CBS chairman and CEO Leslie Moonves, and CBS This Morning co-host Charlie Rose, all accused of sexual misconduct, have either been fired or resigned. Jerika Duncan has the latest on Fager, including his controversial text message.
Jeff Fager, the executive producer of the oldest and most successful news magazine program in history, 60 Minutes, was fired from CBS News this afternoon. In its more than 50 years on air, only 2 people have led that broadcast. Fager succeeded the show's creator, Don Hewitt, in 2004. Fager also recently served as the chairman of the CBS News division.
When we cover a story and report it on Sunday night, and it has impact on Monday morning, that's what you hope for.
Fager hired Charlie Rose for multiple roles at the network. In November, Rose was terminated. This July, 6 female former CBS employees told The New Yorker Fager would touch employees in ways that made them uncomfortable after drinking at office parties. 19 current and former employees told The New Yorker Fager allowed harassment in the division. Fager vehemently denied all of those claims. Fager continued to come to work. On Sunday, The New Yorker reported a new accuser said she felt compelled to speak because she simply can't believe Fager is back there. The article described her as a producer who was an intern at CBS in the early 2000s who said that he groped her at a work party. In response to that allegation, Fager told CBS News, "This is an outrageous claim, and it didn't happen. It is wrong." Fager's departure comes days after CBS chairman and CEO Leslie Moonves resigned following allegations of sexual assault and harassment. We caught up with CBS News president David Rhodes today after he briefed the 60 Minutes staff.
Can't talk to you guys about this today.
In a statement today, Rhodes said Fager's dismissal is not directly related to the allegations surfaced in press reports, which continue to be investigated independently. However, he violated company policy, and it is our commitment to uphold those policies. Through his attorney, Fager told CBS News they terminated my contract early because I sent a text message to one of our own CBS reporters demanding that she be fair in covering the story. My language was harsh. CBS did not like it. I am that reporter. Since Jeff Fager publicly referred to our exchange today, I want to be transparent about it. First, here's some background. Sunday evening, I reached out to Fager for comment on the articles alleging he groped or touched CBS employees at company parties. In addition to denying these charges, Fager in a text said to me, quote, "If you repeat these false accusations without any of your own reporting to back them up, you will be held responsible for harming me." He went on to say, "Be careful. There are people who lost their jobs trying to harm me, and if you pass on these damaging claims without your own reporting to back them up, that will become a serious problem."
Let's get into this individual here. Some of you may have been fans of the show Seventh Heaven. Well, Stephen Collins here, as we read the headline, Stephen Collins admits to sex abuse charges. I did something terribly wrong. The Seventh Heaven actor speaks out and reveals details behind the audio recording that surfaced 2 months ago, per the date of this actual report here in 2014. More than 2 months after recording of him confessing to child molestation was made public, Seventh Heaven actor Stephen Collins is speaking out, confirming that he did sexually abuse 3 underage girls from 1973 to 1994. 40 years ago, I did something terribly wrong that I deeply regret. I have been working to atone for it ever since. Now, what I want to know is, let's see, the 67-year-old whom authorities recently reported decided not to reportedly decided not to prosecute following the publication of his confession, says he hasn't engaged in inappropriate sexual conduct with minors since then. So, as we can see, more biased in the white supremacy system of injustice, this man has admittedly, I did something terribly wrong. He is a pedophile. Bill Cosby is, and I got to keep bringing Bill Cosby up because the white supremacist media has made him the face of sexual misconduct towards women. Bill Cosby didn't admit to doing anything to this hybrid between Sigourney Weaver and Arnold Schwarzenegger. He didn't admit doing anything to her. And from what I understand, he has not admitted any wrongdoing whatsoever. As we know, mostly all of the women who have came out to accuse Bill Cosby were in fact lying or fabricating stories. Most of these women were junkies, and even if he did have sexual contact with them, he wasn't drugging them in order to do so. But again, which is why the first case, the charges were dismissed. He was put on trial again for, I cannot ever remember this ugly ass chick's name. He was put on trial again for touching the quote unquote breasts of this woman while she was asleep. Which again, how do you know if your titties were touched if you were asleep? That's beyond me. But in any event, he is in prison now for the accusation, not proof, not even admitting he did anything wrong, but solely for the accusation. And let's go down here again. I'm going to read this again. 40 years ago, I did something terribly wrong that I deeply regret. I've been working to atone for it ever since, Collins said in a lengthy statement released to People. The 67-year-old, whom authorities recently reportedly decided not to prosecute following the publication of his confession, says he has engaged in inappropriate sexual contact with minors since, or rather, he hasn't engaged in inappropriate sexual misconduct with minors since then. I have not had an impulse to act out in such a way, he told People. Again, he admitted it, and authorities decided not to prosecute him. They just decided not to prosecute him. Why? Right? Now, that's the big question. Why? Here, Stephen Collins. Let's see. And this is Stephen Collins denies he's a pedophile after confessing to two sexual misconduct with 3 girls. So he denies it after he admits doing it. We're not even going to read this. You guys can go ahead and check this out if you like and read the entire thing, but I have no time for bullshit. Pardon my language, but you admitted to doing it, but then you deny being a pedophile. Okay. How many of you remember this guy here? Marv Albert. Yeah, Marv Albert. Sportscast. Let's see. Marv Albert pleads guilty in sex case. Is fired by NBC. Sportscaster Marv Albert's sexual assault trial, which was replete with kinky details of lurid assignations in hotel rooms, came to an abrupt end Thursday when the flamboyant announcer pled guilty to assault and battery and was promptly fired by NBC. In exchange for a guilty plea on the misdemeanor assault charge, prosecutors in Arlington, Virginia dropped a more serious forcible sodomy charge. Albert, who became known as the Yes Man because of his distinctive call while broadcasting professional basketball games, also resigned from his position with the MSG cable network as the voice of NBA's New York Knicks. From my point of view, I just felt like I had to end this ordeal, said Albert at 56, blah, 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 blah. But another white man who was guilty of his crimes, but not imprisoned for them. Yeah. Let's move on to Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen admits he didn't tell some of his partners he had HIV over blackmail fears. Now, this is sick, because this dude was basically gift wrapping HIV to women in Hollywood. Charlie Sheen said he didn't tell some of his past sexual partners he had HIV because he was worried they would blackmail him. Wow. But the entire world knows that you have HIV now. Right? Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we're going to go through this pretty quickly. Despite admitting he had not been honest with all of his sexual partners, the 50-year-old former 2.5 Men actor insisted he had not infected any sexual partners with HIV since his diagnosis roughly 4 years ago. Sheen publicly disclosed he was HIV positive on the Today Show in November. At the time, he said he had disclosed his status to all his previous sex partners. Discussing his sexual history in an interview with Mail Online columnist Piers Morgan at London's Theatre Royal Drury Lane on Monday night, Sheen explained he hadn't always been upfront about his sexually transmitted disease. The only couple of times I didn't tell somebody was because at least 25 times I told somebody they used it against me and they used my medical condition for their own folly. Oh boy. Now, this is what I went on ahead and did ahead of time. Under the criminal law, a person with HIV is criminally liable for prosecution if they have intentionally transmitted the virus to their partner without informing them of their status. Now, I do believe that it is an attempt murder if you knowingly have sex with somebody with a disease that could kill them. You know you have it, you have sex with them anyway, you don't disclose that information to them. And I believe that's what Charlie Sheen was afraid of, him going to prison for attempted murder, which he should be in jail for anyway. But Bill Cosby is the bad guy in he's worse than all of these individuals so far, right? He's the super bad guy. Let's move on. Let's see. Matt Lauer. Let's go. Shocking new allegations emerged about the sexual misconduct scandal that is quickly enveloping Matt Lauer. On Wednesday, mere hours after NBC announced that it had fired the Today announcer because of a complaint about alleged sexual misconduct, Variety has dropped the report with hideous allegations about the TV star's alleged behavior. The claims run the gamut. He made lewd sexual remarks about female colleagues. He once invited a female employee to his secluded office, then showed her his penis. He gave one female colleague a sex toy with an explicit note about how he wanted to use it on her, Variety writes. The allegations don't stop there. Lauer would also reportedly quiz female producers about their sex lives and play a crass, office-themed version of the game Fuck, Marry, or Kill. Wow. He also reportedly had a button on his desk that allowed him to lock the door Two women tell Variety that it enabled him to welcome female employees and initiate inappropriate contact while knowing nobody could walk in on him. One former producer who knew firsthand of these encounters also told Variety that Lauer, who was married, allegedly cheated on his wife. Obviously, he cheated on his wife if he was doing all this. Obviously. But who would allow this dude to install a button at his desk that would automatically lock his door? Again, birds of a feather. Anyway, there were a lot of consensual relationships, but that's still a problem because of the power he held. This person said he couldn't sleep around town with celebrities or on the road with random people because he's Matt Lauer and he's married. So he'd have to do it within his stable, where he exerted power and he knew people wouldn't ever complain. Representatives for Lauer have not yet responded to Vanity Fair's request for comment. Variety notes that he could not be reached for comment. The piece is the result of a 2-month investigation, which stretches back to before the New York Times dropped its stunning Harvey Weinstein piece, which kicked off the sexual misconduct reckoning in Hollywood and beyond. But what kind of reckoning is there if none of these men are being held accountable? And when I say held accountable, I don't mean just being accused and having the accusations be public. I mean held accountable so far as where are their prison sentences? Why are they not in prison? Like one Bill Cosby is in prison. Because a black man gets accused, his life is over. His career is over. His career and his life is over. White men get accused, then we'll just give it some time. It'll eventually fade away because remember, I just talked to you guys about Marv Albert. Remember Marv Albert? Nobody's talking about Marv Albert. Nobody's even brought his name up into this. I haven't heard anyone mention Marv Albert, along the long list of individuals who have been implicated in these stories. I'm the only one who dug in the crates and brought up Marv Albert's name. And I mean, come on, we can bring up plenty of others, but he was one of the more famous ones. I remember that. It was a chick who accused him of biting her on the back, and they actually had teeth marks on her back. Les Moonves. Let's see. Former CBS chief Moonves accused of more sexual misconduct. This seems to be a pattern, right? Like there is a culture of sexual depravity and misconduct for these people. Let's see. File in September 19, 2017. File photo Les Moonves, chairman and CEO of CBS Corporation, poses at the premiere, blah, 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 blah. Okay. An internal investigation of former CBS chief Leslie Moonves, has turned up more evidence of sexual misconduct as well as lying and destruction of evidence, throwing into jeopardy his $120 million severance package. The New York Times reported Wednesday. A look at what's known about the scandal so far. The latest. Lawyers hired by the network allege in a draft report that the TV executive committed multiple acts of serious non-consensual sexual misconduct before and after he came to CBS in 1995, according to the Times. So, this was before 1995. Before then. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So, more than 2 decades ago, he had these allegations. He was, wow. Okay. He also deleted numerous text messages and was evasive and untruthful at times under questioning, the report says. Among other things, investigators received reports about a network employee who was on call to perform oral sex on Moonves. Wow. Investigators also found that he received oral sex from at least 4 CBS employees under circumstances that sound transactional and improper to the extent that there was no hint of any relationship, romance, or reciprocity. So basically, you want to keep your job, you come polish the brass, basically. The investigators say they interviewed 11 of 17 women they knew had accused Moonves of misconduct and found their accounts credible. The 59-page report is to be presented to CBS's board of directors before the company's annual meeting next week, the Times said. The reaction of the lawyer for Moonves, Andrew J. Lavender, said in a statement that Moonves said he cooperated extensively and fully with investigators. The former CEO, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not reading all that because we're not giving this dude any credit for anything that he may have or may not have done to save the network. Who cares? I'm going to read this part again. Among other things, investigators received reports about a network employee who was on call to perform oral sex on Moonves. Investigators also found that he received oral sex from at least 4 CBS employees under circumstances that sound transactional and improper to the extent that there was no hint of any relationship, romance, or reciprocity. Again, these are people who were on call to polish the brass in order to keep their job. You want your job, come slob on my knob, basically. That's what that sounds like to me. That's what that sounds like. So, as you guys can see, we are dealing with a culture of sexual misconduct and rape, because this is rape. If these people are not willing to engage in sexual actions with you via their own decisions, their own choice, their own free will, as opposed to having their job used as leverage against them, this is rape. This is beyond sexual misconduct. But again, the face of sexual misconduct with quote-unquote powerful men seems to be a black man by the name of Dr. William H. Cosby Jr. And again, they hold up R. Kelly also. R. Kelly, I'm not going to sit here and claim any innocence from R. Kelly, but we all know what the deal was with R. Kelly. These girls' parents were pimping their daughters out to R. Kelly. I'm not saying R. Kelly is right for having sexual interactions with underage women. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is these women and these men pimped their daughters out for a check. They gave their daughters to R. Kelly for money. Because who didn't know about R. Kelly and his sexual deviancy since the late 90s? I haven't listened to R. Kelly music in decades. When I heard about the Aaliyah thing, I'm like, oh, this dude is a pedophile. When I heard about the Aaliyah case, I knew right then and there, I can't deal with this dude. Like, this chick was, 14, 15 when he's supposedly having sex with her and married her? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was through with Homeboy. Well, not the late 90s, but the early 2000s. I was through with Homeboy then. I was through with him then. You know what I'm saying? It was no secret at that point who and what he was. But, and I'm not making any excuses for him. If he's going to go to jail, if he's going to pay a price for what he did, he should. But if he is going to be punished for what he did, then all of these men need to be punished for what they have done. Every single one of them need to be punished for what they did. Every single one of them need to be punished for what they did. Every single one of them should go to prison. If Bill Cosby can go to prison, every single one of these men need to be in prison. Every single one of them need to go to prison. Every single one of them. If Bill Cosby is guilty, then they're all guilty. They're all guilty. Understand that. This is white supremacy at its worst or finest, whichever way you decide to look at the situation, at its worst or finest, defending and protecting the hierarchy of white supremacy. They are protecting each other because there is a culture of rape and sexual depravity within white supremacy. Without a doubt, there is. If this doesn't show you that, then I don't know what will.
about questions that will be answered and will not be answered, and this was one of those instances where questions were only supposed to be about a particular subset of individuals, and I certainly can't go back and second guess the work that was done by able counsel in that deposition, but what's important there is that the questions that Mr. Cosby did answer, and candidly, more candidly than many I've seen in depositions in all the years I've been practicing, those answers were, one, that he never gave a woman a drug without her consent, and two, that he did not have non-consensual sex with any other person. So that's why it's important for me to go to whomever I can who will listen and say that Mr. Cosby, as of today, is innocent until proven guilty, and there shall not be proof because the statute of limitations has passed. People waited far too long to want to discuss these matters at all. He's never been charged with a crime, never been convicted of a crime, and never admitted a crime. So where we stand right now is with people attempting to do through media and through public opinion what they cannot do and have failed to do in a court of law.
I understand what you say, that your client is saying, that Mr. Cosby is saying, but the fact is that 37 women say that Bill Cosby raped or sexually assaulted them, and some say that they were drugged. And I know he says that none of that happened, but are you saying, or is your team saying, that all of these women are lying?
And I'm not calling anyone a liar. What I'm saying is that Mr. Cosby vehemently denies those allegations, and I actually reject the clumping. I know that it's probably more impressive when we say numbers like 35 or 37, but 37 women are not saying that they were raped. 37 women are not saying that they were sexually assaulted. There, as you said, are a variety of claims that are actually distinct, that are being clumped together, I guess, because it's easier than doing what to me should be the hard work and asking the hard questions.
They are distinct, but none of them are very positive when it comes to Mr. Cosby. But let me ask you, have you ever seen a case where 37 separate accusers, even if they have different stories, many of them are close to identical, but where they were all making it up?
I don't know who's making what up. I'm not really comparing it to any other cases. What I'm saying is that, yes, through the decades, we have seen what we used to call lynch mobs, where people turned and pointed the finger at one person and accused that one person of doing something that they did not do, and they were filed into the court, one after another, to say he did it, she did it, when it was not the case. That happened often in the 60s and 70s in this country, and actually, that's not what's happening now, because we can't even go into a courtroom to get these matters resolved. Some say that the statute of limitations has expired and that's convenient for Mr. Cosby. I disagree. I think it's convenient for accusers, because then they're not required to do what would happen if they actually had to be brought into court and stand under the scrutiny of examination for the allegations that they're bringing now.
Will Mr. Cosby ever come out publicly on his own without a lawyer like yourself speaking for him and say anything about these allegations?
I can't say what Mr. Cosby will or will not do at a point in the future, but what I know for sure is that in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. It's not guilty until proven innocent. Mr. Cosby doesn't have anything to prove. He's speaking through his lawyers so that the record can be set straight, but he has the right to say nothing at all.
Monique Presley, thank you very much for your time.
Friends, Mark Lester. Mark, you've seen the documentary, like I have. Yeah. What did you make of it?
Well, first of all, I thought it was overlong. It seemed to repeat itself quite a lot. It was quite boring in many places. Made me feel quite sick.
Did you feel, watching it, that this was anything to do with the person that you knew for decades?
This is not the Michael Jackson that I knew for over 30 years. This is not the man that my children knew. This is not the guy that I knew that they were talking about.
So do you feel angry about it, or just saddened or disappointed?
I think I feel sad that this has even come to light. I don't really know what the object of the exercise is here. I mean, it's a very sad and sensitive subject. Child abuse is awful, but I can't fathom what good or what this is trying to achieve.
You were, as you said, very, very close, very good friends. Nothing inappropriate ever happened to you. Yeah. Did you ever see, Mark, anything that made you think something's not right here, alarm bells are going off?
Absolutely not. I never saw or was party or even had the slightest notion that there was anything untoward with Michael. And my children were, for maybe 7-8 years with Michael's children, playing together. I mean, I was godfather to his children, he was godfather to my children. I never had nothing ever untoward.
And you were really in the inner circle. As far as you're concerned, there is no truth at all in any of these allegations. Why do you think then that they're doing this? Why put yourself through that at the age of they're now in their late 30s?
I don't know these guys. I don't know. I failed to understand what the purpose of this is, really.
When you were at Neverland, there were young boys and children running around, and you've said in the past that their behaviour sometimes was bad. They were like rats. Oh
gosh, yes. Well, I remember when the Arvizo children was a little cancer boy who Michael visited in the hospital a lot, and then invited him to the ranch. And then in the end, there was about a dozen of these sort of hooligans running around Neverland, trashing the place.
Do you think he was taken advantage of then?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you see that quite a lot, that people would do that?
I didn't see it quite a lot, but certainly with that family, there was they took advantage to the nth degree, and they treated Neverland, and they abominably. I mean, they stole. We had a wine cellar that he had locked away, so they were breaking in and stealing booze, and they had golf carts that went around the property, and they would race these things, and they would roll them over down hills and things. It was just like, just have some respect.
Criminal was really tragic, and I think it had a lot to do with shortening his life.
You don't think Michael Jackson has molested one single person?
I do not. I absolutely do not. And I sat with him for 5 months, 5 days a week, in a criminal courtroom, watching not just the Arvizo allegations, but other allegations being made against him. Allegations that he had molested Macaulay Culkin. Allegations that he had molested a whole bunch of other people. That experience seared into my soul a very strong belief that Michael Jackson never molested anyone.
Is there a possible explanation in the Me Too movement where people now feel more comfortable saying publicly, look, I was abused. Can we now please do something about it?
I think the freedom of the Me Too movement has allowed false accusations to be made as well as real accusations. The Me Too movement in America is a very passionate, very powerful movement, and I believe a lot of good will eventually come out of it. I believe a lot of women have been mistreated, a lot of people have been mistreated, and I think to air all this in a public way will eventually find some balance and some good results. The problem with a movement this powerful is that people have due process rights. People who are accused of misconduct have a right to defend themselves.
Do you think if he was still alive, do you think these people would now be coming out and saying the same thing, that he molested me?
I just don't know. I mean, I think I have to believe these are financially motivated accusations. I have to believe that, because how else can you explain it?
How many boys, how many families has he or the Jackson estate paid off over the years?
I'm not aware of their paying anybody off, other than a couple of settlements where he was advised by lawyers and business associates to pay money to end the story, and he regretted doing it. He told me many times I should never have settled with a couple of people I settled with, because all it did was open up Pandora's box and create all sorts of problems for him.
He paid Jordan Chandler, the Chandler family, $20 million.
Well,
to make it go away.
Again, according to Michael, he had lawyers and business advisors who were telling him, pay the money, it's a drop in the bucket with what you can make around the world. You have an incredible career, there's a lot more time to produce beautiful music and make a lot of money. This is nothing, get rid of it, stop the publicity, do it now.
But do you pay someone $20 million if you think you're entirely innocent?
If $20 million is a drop in the bucket and you're going to make billions instead, maybe you'd consider it.
So, again, to keep them quiet.
2 settlements to keep people quiet and to let his business career and musical career go forward.
But you're convinced that doesn't say guilty?
No, absolutely not. Not when you put yourself in Michael Jackson's shoes. When you see the kind of money this man could make, when you see the following he had around the world, when you realize what business potential existed with Michael Jackson products, with Michael Jackson music, with Michael Jackson tours, these amounts of money were nothing compared to what he could make. And he was advised by some pretty shrewd people, pay off these people, you got bigger fish to fry.
I was born black, I live black, and I'm gonna die probably because I'm black, because I'm